You're listening to Two Girls, One Crossword.
I literally cannot think of anything I want to talk to you about.
I have zero things that I want to talk to you about as well. So, hey.
Hey, yeah, I mean, everything that I maybe could bring up, they're all actually secrets. So.
Oh, wait, I've got a question. Maybe I can ask us a question to get us started off.
Okay.
This might throw people through a loop here. Through like the ringer. But this is a very serious question. Do people still celebrate July 4th?
Yes, people do. Do I? No.
I know. I guess, I don't know. I must live in a very, very specific bubble because when things like July 4th come around and people are like, I've got plans, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, wait, hold on. What do you mean you have plans? You're going to do something? It's a great excuse to just have more than 2 days off from work.
Yeah, I will admit, like, back in college, I would go to 4th of July parties. I would eat a hot dog. I would watch fireworks. But I feel like now it almost feels wrong to celebrate 4th of July. Like, it's too patriotic.
It
I don't
also
even want to
feels
wear
like
red, white, or blue on the day.
It feels like a hate crime for 4th of July to happen right after Pride Month. Just, like, honestly.
Yeah.
It's too soon.
So no.
It's too soon.
I'll be celebrating privately by not doing anything.
Same. I actually just found out we have off work on Monday, which is a nice little treat. I am the worst when it comes to remembering or realizing that we have days off. I'm the type of person who would literally go into the office on like Memorial Day, like that Monday or whatever. That's me, unless my boss, which she has taken the job of reminding me when we have holidays and when to bring an umbrella, because she gets stressed out that I often walk around without an umbrella because I never check the weather. Oh, this is my own personal cross to bear. And also, just to say, if you celebrate 4th of July, I hope you have fun. Please do not bring any low-cal or diet options to your 4th of July celebrations. That's not the point.
Wait,
okay?
Why is that? That's so very specific.
I just feel like
to someone in particular.
No. I feel like there's always somebody that's like, oh, I brought a potato salad with like light mayo. It's like, no, you've already committed to the potato salad or the macaroni salad. Like, let's go full cal here. Like, if you're gonna celebrate and you're gonna have a day off from work, just go full balls to the wall.
I feel that. I understand where you're coming from, but I do feel like this happened to you personally.
I just feel like, you know, diet culture is pervasive, and 4th of July is about freedom from the restrictions of diet culture. You heard it here first, so.
You did. That's what we like to talk about here on Two Girls, One Crossword. We're the Good Evening Girls. I'm Grace Topinka.
And I'm Chelsea Rowan. This is your favorite weekly Podword Crosscast. We're so happy to have you as we debate the merits of low-cal, full-cal potato salad.
I don't really like potatoes. Well, I don't want to say that. In some situations, it's okay. But I don't really like mayo when it's like all over something. It's the same as like I wouldn't want to eat lettuce covered in ketchup. You know, like mayo's a condiment. You have to use it sparingly. I feel like using it as like a glue for everything is just, it's too much.
I am hearing you. I'm really hearing you. And I have a thing with dairy products, and especially dairy products that hit a certain consistency level, and mayo is up there, like right next to like Greek yogurt. Mm-hmm. Like I gotta tread real careful with like the amounts of mayo that are on things. Like I could eat potato salad, but sometimes if it's like globby, it feels like I'm just literally eating cottage cheese in terms of consistency, and it's like a no.
Have you ever been like eating yogurt, then all of a sudden you just want to throw up? That happens to me.
Yes. I mean, okay. Yes,
I feel like
and that's why I don't eat yogurt anymore. I don't eat yogurt anymore.
I like yogurt, but yeah, sometimes I'm eating and I'm just like, same with mashed anything gooey. Bed I don't want to.
I feel that way with like anything that is mixed with mayo. I really like mayo mixed on things. I like the taste of mayo, but if it's too much, there's like that moment of realization that hits the back of your mind, and then your body's like, I'm gonna eject this, and then I'm like, I literally can't eat this anymore. I feel the same way about eggs. Sometimes I'm on with eggs and sometimes I'm off with eggs.
Eggs are tricky. It's like scrambled eggs. I can go either way. A hard-boiled egg is usually safe for me, but
right.
Yeah. Anyways, let's not push our weird consistency stuff on our listeners. But if you understand what we're saying, let us know.
Please do. I'm so glad that I'm not alone with the whole consistency thing with like dairy products or dairy adjacent products.
Should we get into Pullapalooza?
I think that's the best course of action.
Okay. So we asked our Twitter followers the creepiest doll to find in your attic, and possible answers were ventriloquist doll, clown doll, and baby doll. And maybe I should have, for me, like baby doll and those weird like Victorian dolls and dresses were kind of like the porcelain dolls, but maybe I should have did a fourth one. But whatever, I can't go back and I can't change what's already happened.
You can't change the past.
No. So these are the answers.
Okay.
50% of people at number 1 voted ventriloquist doll, which was my topic last week, and I agree. Ventriloquist dolls are kind of creepy, and we kind of talked about why they are creepy, because your brain interprets them as being real.
Exactly.
44% voted for clown doll, so pretty close between those two, and then last, with only 6%, was a baby doll.
Okay. I've never been afraid of clowns, really. I mean, like, I can understand, like, anything can be scary if it's, like, done the right way, for sure. Mm-hmm. But I've never had a fear of clowns, but I would say baby doll / porcelain doll would be higher for me in that list than clown.
I think a lot of people that chose clown doll probably saw Poltergeist, because there is a really creepy clown doll that, like, you know, moves closer to you.
But yeah, I mean, for me, that's not the clown that's scary in particular. To me, that's like the cinematic, like, mechanism, you know?
No,
but
I don't have a fear of clowns either. In fact, I was a clown for Halloween once. Not a creepy clown, just a regular, wholesome clown. It was fun.
Run of the mill.
I carried 10 helium balloons with me to work and to every party I went to. It was a big hit.
Do you remember the trick you played on our ops manager at the time, that you were like filling a balloon out of this like random pipe that hangs in the office? And she was like,
I don't even know how to describe this, but basically, if you know what a boomerang is, it's when the picture kind of goes like in a loop, and it's like a 2-second picture. We had this like random valve that showed up in our office. It used to not be there.
Yeah.
This is on my Instagram if anyone wants to stalk me this far back. But I like held the balloon to the valve and I just like let some air out, but then I made it a boomerang. So it looked like it was inflating instead of deflating.
Right.
And I did it as a joke. I thought everyone could tell it was a boomerang, but then she got really mad at me because she thought I was like opening up air valves, like gas pipes in the office.
Then don't leave valves around, you know?
And it had been there for like a week, and people were talking about it. They're like, what is this? Why is this here? So then I made that boomerang. Anyways, good times. I feel like I can barely prank people anymore because I don't see anyone on a regular enough basis.
I know. We've lost a lot of great opportunities for pranking, but we have some pranks lined up in our back pocket for the inevitable return to the office whenever that happens. I'm very excited about one we talked about recently. If it's a success, we may relay it here on the podcast.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. But until then, let's do some hits and some shits. Can I start us off?
Yes, you can.
Some news. Some news in the cross world. You may have heard this already, since this is coming out, a week later. But the New Yorker announced on June 27th that they are launching all new online cryptic crosswords. If you don't know what a cryptic crossword is, don't be dismayed. According to Wikipedia, a cryptic crossword is basically each clue is a word puzzle in and of itself. So you know those clues in regular crosswords that have like question marks at the end of them, and it's like really intense wordplay and whatever. Cryptic crosswords are kind of like that, but like on many, many drugs at the same time, you know?
Yeah,
and
this is good news for anyone who can actually do cryptic crosswords. I'm not one of them. I'm so bad at them.
We're really bad, and it's upsetting sometimes to think how poorly we do with cryptic crosswords. But I wanted to give our listeners an example, and I just pulled this right from the article on the New Yorker website that announced that they're doing cryptic crosswords. For instance, here's a clue. You might get this clue. Pair of derrieres in seats at last for musical. And the answer was assassins. Okay, and I'm like, you guys are crazy. How do we even get there? So this comes directly... Yes. Okay, so this explanation comes directly from the New Yorker article. If you're more interested, I believe that they're also going to run, or at least they ran after their first cryptic, a article that explained all the answers for the puzzle, which I was like, oh, that could actually be really helpful to teach us how to think cryptically.
I was going to say, that's what I need. I'm only going to do that part, just read the explanations.
Exactly. So here's an explanation. So a cryptic clue has two parts, a short definition or synonym for the answer. Here, the definition is musical, which always falls at either the beginning or the end of a clue, and a wordplay component. In this clue, pair of derrieres represents the first 6 letters, so ass and ass. So assassins is spelled ass, I-N-S. So a pair of derrieres is the 2 asses. In is the next 2. So in the clue, it says pair of derrieres in seats. So ass, ins.
Mm-hmm.
And then seats at last gives us the letter S, which is the last letter of seats.
Okay.
So ass, in the last letter of seats, S. So assassins.
Mm-hmm. What's the musical part of it?
I don't actually understand that part. So
this is why we can't do cryptics.
This is why we can't do cryptics. And I feel really silly doing this on air, but I just want our listeners to know that if you think we're really smart for whatever reason, if we've ever given off the appearance that we're intelligent, like really, really smart, think again. But anyway, New Yorker released this awesome news. Congratulations. The puzzles will be available every Sunday, and they're going to be constructed by some regulars that you may have heard us talk about, that you see in puzzles all over the place. Patrick Barry, Emily Cox, Henry Rathvon, Neville Fogarty, Joshua Kosman, Henry Picciato, Paolo Pasco, Trip Payne, and Stella Sawatowski. Stella actually, I don't know if she still does it, but Stella used to run cryptic clues on her Instagram,
Twitter.
and you would Twitter. And then like every Friday she would explain how you would get the answer. It was kind of fun. I followed it for a while and I never ever got the answer right.
No,
and
me
then,
neither. And it'd always be like if you get it, I'm like
sorry.
I cannot like this. I like that you're doing it, but it wouldn't be truthful for me to like the tweet.
Exactly. I don't want people to think that I understood this. So yeah, that's some good news to start us off.
Very cool.
I guess good news for other people. Maybe one day it'll be good news for us.
I would love to be smart one day. No, I don't want to say that. We are smart. We just have different strengths than intelligence.
That's what she says every night before sleep.
Yeah. It's my mantra. I have a hit.
Okay.
Well, this is from the WAPO June 27th puzzle. It was called Personal Letters by Evan Bernholz. And it was, this is our last episode in Pride Month, even though, well, it's not even Pride Month anymore. It's July 1st, so maybe I shouldn't even say this. But this puzzle was in Pride Month, so I'm going to say it. The theme revealer 122 across was period associated with initialism, with an initialism heard by saying 7 of this puzzle's clues out loud. The answer was Pride Month. So some of the other clues, 23 across was L, and then the answer was right angle. 35 across was G, in the G-E-E exclamation. The answer was how about that? 44 was B, it was live and breathe. 65 was T, T-E-E, it was casual shirt. 74 was Q, like Q-U-E-U-E, which, by the way, that word is just wild the way it's spelled. That was waiting line, and then 97 across was I, which was get a good look at. I-E-Y-E. So anyways, phonetically, LGBTQ, I-A. 107 across was ... E-H question mark. The answer was don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that was fun.
I love that.
Shout
that
out
was
to LGBTQIA. I was waiting for a plus in there, but it's fine. I understand.
No, for sure. I was just really excited that IA made it in. Because oftentimes you see LGBTQ in crosswords, or you see LGBTQ like in various publications online, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And not all the time do you get to see the IA at the end of this initialism. So I was very pleased to see that.
Agreed. Because I'd already done a lot of it. Then when I saw that, I went back to C, and I was like almost done at LGBTQ. I was like, oh, wait a minute. There is an I and A in here.
I know. For those who don't know, I in LGBTQIA stands for intersex, and A stands for asexuality.
Yes.
And plus is, which was not in this puzzle, but plus is plus for like everything else.
Well, I feel like this puzzle had a couple of different LGBTQIA plus themed cues. 88 down, events set up on the apps Her and Scruff, which are gay dating apps. The answer was dates. 111 down, he gave Brokeback Mountain 4 stars. Ebert, although Brokeback Mountain I would think is like a gay story made for straight people.
Have you seen Brokeback Mountain?
I've seen enough.
I mean, yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, what is gay but for straight people, and what's straight but for gay people? Brokeback Mountain definitely falls closer to the straight side of the spectrum.
I'll just say, in the middle of nowhere, cans of beans, and dry. I don't want to get too into it, but we could talk about this later.
Use your imagination.
But I was 112 down, Greer of the L Word, Pam.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
gotta love the pride.
I think that was all. Oh no, never mind. Yeah. So thank you for that, Evan.
Thanks, Evan. We love to see it on the last Sunday puzzle of Pride Month. Very, very nice. I liked the Friday, June 25th New Yorker by Anna Schechtman. It's a good puzzle overall, but I really liked the 15 across answers specifically. It was just, these two names were really nice to see in a puzzle, and I like them as like the kind of like hero fill. 21 across, 2020 Grammy winner for Igor, and the answer was Tyler, the Creator, which is awesome. I have yet to listen to his new album, Call Me If You Get Lost. Very excited to listen to that. I wanted to give it the time it deserves. I've just not been in the mood. And then 45 across, 2017 Grammy winner for Coloring Book, and the answer is Chance the Rapper. So it was just nice to see two long answers like that in the puzzle.
Yeah, wait. Are those both 15 letters?
They are.
Ooh, that's
What
cool.
are the chances?
That's nice.
I know. I also, another Friday puzzle that I really liked is the Friday New York Times by Scott Earl. 14 across, just to start us off a light like here. Quote, yeah, lunch now works for me. And the answer is I could eat. If you ever need, like, the fastest way to my heart is food, offering me food, asking if I'm hungry, begging me to take you to get food, asking me to cook for you, that is like the way to my heart. All I care about is watching other people eat and also eating with them. So that's a little bit about me. But also in that puzzle, 32 across, its members were collectively awarded Time Magazine's 2017 Person of the Year. And the answer was Me Too movement. And that sat right on top of 35 across, unearned advantage based on sex. Unearned advantage based on sex. And the answer was male privilege. Just two interesting answers to see in the puzzle.
To be right on top of each other, yeah.
Exactly. To have the Me Too movement sitting on top of male privilege actually felt kind of nice. And then I also just liked 4 down, because I think this is, it imbues a time in both of our lives, Grace. Bead-like bit on a surfer's necklace.
Puka shell.
Puka shell. I feel like everybody and their mother was wearing puka shells in the early 2000s.
Anybody who was anybody was.
Seriously. So great puzzle. Thanks, Scott.
I liked the Monday New York Times by Pamela F. Davis. The theme answers were, I thought they were fun and interesting. So 17 across was in quotes, so this red thing, Mom, this is not good. Beet report, but B-E-E-T. Then you have 27 across. The French one is my favorite. Wait, no, the pretzel one. That is roll reversal, but R-O-L-L. And then 48 across, ew, mollusks. I don't know. Didn't this make me sick last time? Muscle memory, but muscle spelled like the food. But I did also like from that puzzle, the opener, 1 across, potato informally. And the answer is spud. But it just kind of made me laugh to think of a potato in a formal way, I guess, is potato. But I wonder, is there like another,
Tato? A tater?
Potato. Yeah.
Potato. Very nice. I like that theme as well. Speaking of themes that I liked the theme from the Tuesday, January 20, we're not in January. It's July, technically, from the June 29th New York Times by Alan Arbsfeld. The theme is like literal answers, sort of. It's easier to just explain. So 17 across. Toy with a spring, literally. And the answer was the Jack box. But it's like a kind of play on words. It's Jack. The word Jack is in the middle of the box. So Jack in the box. 24 across. Put an early stop to, literally. The nip bud. Nip inside the bud. Nip in the bud. Very nice. And then years ago, literally 55 across. The back day. Back in the day. I thought that was fun.
Yeah. That took me a little bit to get, but this is, well, it's not really a shit. It's just kind of funny. I think 46 down was a little unnecessarily rude. It can take your breath away. And the answer was asthma.
I love it. Good stuff. Do you have anything else?
Which one was this? The Wednesday New York Times by Christopher Adams and Adam Aronson. The theme was just fun. 57 down, woman in a 1982 hit who can be reached using the starts of the answers to the starred clues. And
this
it's
was
Jenny. And then all the starred clues spell out like 8675309.
I loved that, and I loved that O was actually O instead of 0.
At first, I didn't realize what was happening, and then I saw that one. I was like, "It's O Canada." I'm like, that's not a number. I'm like, I guess they're using O for 0. And then once I saw the revealer, I was like, oh, that makes sense because it's O in the song.
Love it. The last thing that I wanted to say comes from the Monday, January. Oh God, I swear, I'm sorry. Monday, June 28th, New Yorker by Natan last. 48 across with the animated crime-fighting trio consisting of Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup. And the answer was Powerpuff Girls. Of course. I like shrieked. I was so excited to see that in the puzzle. And also, Grace, this would be an incredible Halloween costume.
I was just thinking that we don't have a third.
We have a third. We could figure a third.
We could. I'd obviously be Bubbles. No, sorry. Buttercup.
I probably would be Bubbles.
No, you would probably be Blossom.
I mean, just because I have kind of red hair, I get stuck with Blossom.
I don't know. Unless we find someone else who has more obviously red hair than you, then...
Fine. I will take the bullet for that one, even though you get the cool green goth girl.
Yeah. Do you remember? That's just the benefit of being a brunette. Do you remember when they did, Cartoon Network did like a vote for your favorite one? And Blossom got like last place by a lot. And it's like, no one likes her because she's the leader, even though they probably thought she was going to be like...
Right.
You know, the best one.
Right. My favorite was always Bubbles and then Buttercup.
Buttercup was always my favorite. Anytime, like, I feel like there was always that one more like tomboyish or like mean or like rocker type girl in all of these like groups of girlfriend. I always was that one. Like when we played, I was always that one. So yes, I was always have had a dark cloud hanging over me ever since a child. I've been typecast.
It's interesting because that's always been my second favorite. My favorite has always been like the Bubbles type character. Like Spice Girls, like Baby Spice. I loved her. And then Posh Spice, immediate second. I just loved like the duality. See,
I feel like Spice Girls, I was always Sporty Spice or Scary Spice.
Yes, I would definitely say Posh Spice was second for me. Anyway, I digress. Okay. That's all I have for hits and shits. What do you got?
Well, I have one thing that I learned.
Oh, what did you learn?
I mean, like hits, shits, and that's it. From the USA Today by The Last OG, the June 30th puzzle by Zausheen Bernikel. 26 across, world's most expensive spice.
Isn't it saffron?
It is. I didn't realize that. Apparently it's really hard to obtain it because the flowers that it's made from, like, they only grow like, 3 little thingies, and I can't get into it. But I didn't know that. That's up there though. That comes up in a trivia game. I got it.
She's got it, folks. It's in the brain. Thank you to USA Today for that one.
Should we flip the coin?
Let's flip the coin. I feel like we've dawdled long enough. All right.
Oh, yeah. We really have. Oh, we took a break when the ambulance came by.
I'm flipping the coin now. details.
That's me. Finally. I feel like you've been
Ooh.
starting first
It's true.
for a while.
Now it's your turn.
Watch me shine. My topic comes from that same USA Today puzzle by Zaushim Bernickel on June 30th, and it is 64 down, first U.S. city to host the Olympics, abbreviation
Oh.
St. Louis, or STL.
Okay. I had no idea.
I'm sorry, there are men yelling outside for God knows what reason. They need a reason to just yell. So if you hear chanting in the background, there's nothing I can do. So I'm going to talk about host cities in the Olympics. I have talked a little bit about Olympics before. I think the topic was like new sports that have been introduced into the Olympics and how that kind of works. That's like,
yes.
I feel like that's episode 5 or something. 5 rings and 5 lakes.
Right. And I think it's interesting because we were talking about in the next Olympics, which was supposed to be the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, obviously that got pushed, and it's still being called the 2020 Olympics, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting because you talked about those sports, and I kept that in my brain. And now anytime I'm thinking about the Tokyo Olympics, I'm thinking about those new sports that are going to be there, like the rock climbing, for instance.
Mm-hmm. Surfing.
Karate.
But yeah, so I'm going to focus on host cities and how that happens. So 11 cities submitted bids to host the 2004 Summer Olympics. 10 cities submitted bids for the 2008 Olympics. 9 cities submitted bids for the 2012 Olympics. But in 2017, the Olympic Committee did something unprecedented. They awarded the 2028 Summer Games to LA without asking for any other bidders from any other cities.
Wow.
Why?
Why?
So bidding to host the Olympics used to be almost as competitive as the Olympics itself. So what happened? Why do cities not want to host anymore? Well, to get down to that, let's go into the history of cities bidding. So the Olympics started in ancient Greece as far back as like 776 BC, potentially earlier. But the modern revival took place in 1896 in France, and it was originally planned to be hosted in France, like the first new Olympics, but they decided that Athens, Greece was like the only appropriate place that it could be hosted since Greece was the birthplace. But they also decided that every 4 years they were going to host, it would be hosted by another great city in the world.
Okay.
Winter Games emerged in 1924, but at that time they were held in the same year as the Summer Olympics, which sounds
wild.
Nuts. So in 1994, they decided to alternate them. So yeah, every 2 years, there's Olympics, winter, summer, winter, summer. You all know the deal, okay? So how do cities bid to host the Olympics? The bid is made by a city and not the country. The IOC, or the International Olympics Committee, is the one who chooses the city, and it usually happens 7 years before the games take place because it takes so long to get everything ready.
They need time to, basically redo their entire city's infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. So once a city kind of gets past the first round of submitting a bid, they're put under a 10-month audit that includes looking into multiple things. 1, whether the city can accommodate large numbers of tourists, journalists, and athletes. 2, if they have efficient transportation infrastructure, because you can't be running late at the Olympics. 3, if they have enough sporting venues to host all the different games. And 4, if there is enough security, because obviously the Olympics is a huge target for terrorism and other violent acts. So you need to prove that you have enough security.
Wait a second. They gave the damn 2028 Olympics to LA?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of transportation does LA got but 5 hours of traffic?
Well,
sorry. Questions.
I know.
Questions abound.
Wait and see, because LA is important. It comes up later.
Okay.
So once the city has passed those first 2 levels, they become a candidate city. And candidate cities have to pay a fee of $150,000, which I guess isn't that much for a city and not much compared to the cost that come later. So once the official city is announced, they start constructing the necessary infrastructure right away because it takes years to do it, including the Olympic Village, which is where all the athletes stay. It has to be able to host all the athletes. And apparently there's a lot of sex happening at those.
Oh, yeah.
Olympic
There's condoms
villages,
everywhere.
Yeah. Fair. The IOC also selects a backup city just in case something happens. And this has only ever happened one time. In 1976, Denver our Denver, Colorado, backed out of hosting the Winter Games. And so Innsbruck, Austria took over. And the reason why Denver backed out is because voters voted to reject hosting it after it had already been awarded to the city, which is kind of embarrassing.
God,
So.
yeah. I feel like they should have like a referendum prior to submitting to host.
Yeah. It's like, I wish you would have told me this before I went and fell in love with you. I feel like that's a TikTok sound. Okay, so let's talk about why cities may opt out and why they seem to be opting out a lot, or they're not even putting in bids at all.
I mean, I'm gonna go to my mind palace. I feel like I can get a vibe of like why you wouldn't want to do this, but please tell me.
So this information is from an article on CFR.org called The Economics of Hosting the Olympic Games by James McBride. So for most of the 1900s, the Olympics were hosted only in developed countries, and they were overall like a manageable burden for the cities that hosted them. This was before TV broadcasting, so the host cities weren't expecting to make a huge profit. They were just like, well, we are able to host this many people, we have the money to do it, so like we will take on that responsibility. And then all these other countries can come and compete there. But as time went on, hosting became more and more expensive. The 1976 Montreal Olympics was an example of the financial risk you take while hosting. So they had a projected cost of $124 million, but that cost was billions of dollars below what they actually spent. So basically there's a ton of construction delays, cost overruns for the new stadium, and it took almost 3 decades for Montreal to pay off the debt that they accumulated in preparing for the Olympics. So, no one wants that.
No.
So that was in 1976, and that kind of scared like other cities from wanting to host. In 1979, LA was the only city to bid for the 1984 Summer Olympics because everyone was like, well, we don't want to do that. But the difference was that LA had a lot of existing stadiums and infrastructures already. They had a bunch of sports stadiums. They had the space for it. I guess they had infrastructure. You're right. I mean, I don't know. They do have public transportation in LA.
I know, but nobody... The thing is like nobody uses it. When you think of like an advanced public transportation system, I think of like Japan, for instance. When I think of LA, I think of the misery that people experience on the public transportation.
Well, I think it's more than public transportation too. It's just transportation infrastructure in general. That includes like roads, highways. You know, there's some places where it takes a really long time to drive from one city to the other because just the roads aren't that good.
Right.
Okay, so LA already had a lot of this stuff already, and that also at that time there was like a huge jump in television viewership, and that made LA the first city to ever make a profit by hosting, and they made $215 million by hosting the Olympics.
Okay.
So now all of a sudden, cities were clamoring to get that Olympic bid. But now the IOC could be way pickier about who they would choose, and cities had to basically outdo all the other cities by offering more ambitious, aka more expensive plans on why they should be the host and what they could offer. Also, after 1988, bidding by developing countries more than tripled. So places like China, Russia, and Brazil wanted to use the games and wanted to host to kind of show their growth and their progress on a world stage, which is understandable. But this has come at a cost. So in 2008, Beijing spent $45 billion. In 2014, Sochi spent $50 billion.
That's
and in
insane.
2016, Rio spent $20 billion. But even in cities who didn't end up getting chosen to host, still end up spending a lot of money on their bids. The estimated cost for a failed bid is between $50 to $100 million.
Oh my God.
Once a city is awarded, billions of dollars are spent on infrastructure. And the idea is that a lot of it will be used after the Olympics. So it's overall like an improvement to the city. However, there are a lot of so-called white elephants, which are facilities that either due to their size or their specialized nature have little use outside of the Olympics.
Right.
So some examples of these, Sydney's Olympic Stadium still cost $30 million to maintain every year. And it's not, used a ton. Beijing's Bird Nest Stadium cost $460 million to build and $10 million a year to maintain it, and it's barely used at all. Almost all of the facilities built for the Athens 2004 Olympics have been abandoned, and many people think that the massive debt that Athens went into to host the Olympics is like one of the reasons why Greece went bankrupt. And some of the other supposed benefits of hosting the Olympics have been disproven by studies. So one of the things is like, oh, it creates additional jobs. But while the Olympics do create additional jobs, studies show there is no long-term increase in employment.
Of
so
course.
Olympic construction jobs are often temporary, and they're not necessarily given to people who were unemployed before.
Right, for sure.
It also doesn't necessarily increase tourism in the cities. So Barcelona hosted 1992 Olympics, and they are one of the only cities that really saw a huge tourism boom after the Olympics. They went from 11th to the 6th most popular European destination, which is good for them.
Good for you.
And I studied abroad in Barcelona, not to brag, but I did go to the Olympic Park, and people still, like, they use all the facilities there to still play sports, and it's really pretty, actually. Sydney and Vancouver were two other cities that saw a slight tourism increase after they hosted, but London, Beijing, and Salt Lake City all saw decreases in tourism for years after the Olympics.
Wow.
Boston's National Bureau of Economics found that hosting does have a positive impact on a country's international trade, but other studies have found no long-term impact of hosting on a country's GDP. So there's not even that big of an economic benefit to it.
Right. Can't we just like...
We'll talk about solutions towards the end.
Okay, because I'm just like, can't we just like do something about this? This is kind of excessive. Like, for what reason?
There is, I think, a viable solution. So we'll get there. But before we do, let's talk about the Rio Olympics, which were kind of, there were a lot of stories that went around. That was in 2016. It was kind of rocky. So the total cost ended up being more than $20 billion. And the timing wasn't great. They were in an economic recession at the time. Their president had been removed for office. There was just a lot of economic and political unrest.
Drama.
They ended up having to pay a lot in security costs. They had to take out a huge loan for it, and they were still unable to pay a lot of their public employees who worked on the Olympics. And some analysts think that that's contributed to the rise of violent crime in the city, which makes sense. You make a bunch of people work their ass off and you don't pay them, they'll be mad about it.
Hello.
Most of the venues that they built are now abandoned. The Olympic Park is closed and it's overrun with waste and rodents. These apartments that were, originally made for athletes, they were supposed to be converted into housing for citizens, but they are still empty to this day.
Oh my God.
And not only that, but all the Olympic construction, it evicted 77,000 people from their homes.
I was wondering, I feel like that's not unheard of in a lot of countries that have the Olympics. They buy up all this land, and people lose their houses, and then what happens for those people? Yeah.
So it all makes sense why Denver voted against this. It seems like the citizens of that city are the ones who end up paying the ultimate price.
Right.
One of the saddest examples of this was in 1968, before the games in Mexico City. Mexican troops opened fire on Mexican students who were protesting all of the money that was being spent on the Olympics while not spending money to help the city's multiple social problems. There's also been a lot of corruption within the IOC when it comes to awarding bids. So in 1998, there was a huge scandal. Basically, a bunch of members were charged with accepting bribery from Salt Lake City. Of course, it had to be a U.S. city.
Of course.
Some of these bribes included having their children's tuitions paid for. So since then, the IOC has created a new reform package to fight against bribery. And there's also an independent IOC ethics committee that was created. So does that fix everything? I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah.
So that's why people probably aren't trying to host the Olympics, and why they were just because for the Summer Olympics, it was only between LA and I forget. But they were we're going to give the other city the most recent one, and then the next one we'll give to LA because they're worried no one else is going to bid for it. So what is the solution? A lot of economists propose permanent Olympic hosting cities. So I read a USA Today article by Christine Brennan called Things We Change in Sports. It's time for Olympics to adopt a rotation for games. And she proposes that there's a rotation of 3 cities with one wild card city every 4 games. So, for example, let's look at the Summer Olympic Games hosts. LA would host 2028 Summer. Sydney would host 2032 Summer. London would host 2036 Summer. And then a wild card would host 2038 Summer. And then in 2044, it would go back to LA. Be LA, Sydney, London, wild card. The money that is saved by not having to rebuild, this whole city every games can be put into a fund for the wild card city to use. And the IOC could require bids to So the wild card city could prove how they're going to use that infrastructure to benefit the city even after the games. Okay. So I feel like it could actually be a good way to, help
for sure
build up other cities.
That's what I was thinking. Like, why can't we just go to cities where the infrastructure is already in existence, and then like just go there.
That's what a lot of people are saying, that it should just be, there should be certain cities that host it every time. But I like this idea because it does allow other cities to put themselves on the map, get money, help, improve their infrastructure to be able to host as many people. And
is it the same kind of process for the Winter Olympics?
Yeah. This is all the same. So yeah, I don't know which cities would be used for Winter Olympics. It would be different ones, I think.
Right.
Obviously, wouldn't use LA for winter. Well, I can't get into this. Could they use LA for Winter Olympics? I mean, I know they have snow like a little bit outside of LA.
I don't know.
Skiing out there, but I don't know if it's enough. I don't know what the Winter Olympics need.
I went to one of the Olympic little parks. I went to Lake Placid. I feel like a lot of people in the Northeast have been to Lake Placid, and you got to see all the different Olympic buildings and Olympic things and blah blah blah. I mean, whatever. I really love Miracle, that Disney movie, so I was like right up my alley.
Yeah, I feel like that hopefully is where things are headed.
Okay.
It just seems like irresponsible at this point to be spending this much money on things when, especially like cities who bid and don't even get it, still have to spend millions of dollars.
Right. And if you could prove that like all of this infrastructure that you're building like, actually had positive results for your city and the economy, like post games, like then I'd be all for it. But it seems like that's not the case. It seems like it actually has an adverse effect.
Yeah.
And so why are we actively spending like millions of dollars to then have horrible effects at post-Olympic games? Like, imagine the Olympics coming to Chicago. That would be...
It almost did. When I was like coming here for school in 2009, I remember there was a bunch of stuff about Chicago bidding for the Olympics.
Right.
But obviously we
Thank
didn't
God.
win. But I think a lot of people were against that. They were like, because imagine if they had the Olympic. I mean, it would be kind of cool because I would like try to go to an event, but it'd be so crowded.
It would.
It'd
Imagine
like
how miserable we are with
but-
Lollapalooza. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Okay, I'm gonna end with some trivia. I got this from history.co.uk. Olympic Trivia Host Cities Edition.
Oh dear.
Yeah. I don't expect you to know these.
Okay.
I'd be really impressed if you did. So the first city to host both summer and winter games. Do you know? It will be Beijing, China, once they host the 2022 games.
I was going to guess like Oslo. I don't fucking know.
Yeah. What is the last country to host the winter and summer games in the same year?
No idea.
Germany. So that was, before they split it up, the different era.
I see.
Yeah.
What
was the first city in Asia to host the Olympic Games?
Was it South Korea?
City.
Seoul.
Tokyo.
Okay.
Which city has hosted the most editions of the Olympic Games?
Which city? London.
Yes.
Okay.
You're so smart.
Thank you.
Before being canceled due to World War I, where were the 1916 Olympic Games supposed to be held?
Not Germany.
Yes, Berlin. World War I.
Okay,
Berlin.
yeah.
What is the southernmost city to host an Olympic Winter Games?
Sydney.
No. Well, sorry. I should have looked at the pronunciation of this. Nagano, Japan.
Okay.
And what is the northernmost city to host an Olympic Summer Games?
Summer Games.
Mm-hmm.
Boston. I don't know.
Helsinki, Finland.
Helsinki. Okay, I was wondering if it was one of like the,
a cold place.
A cold place, but I'm like, the summer, I don't know.
What is the first city to host the Olympic Games twice?
Greece.
Paris.
Oh, damn it. That's I should have known that. That should have been obvious.
Okay, now this is one you should get because I talked about it in the topic. Let's see if you were listening.
Oh, shit.
What city was initially awarded the 1976 Olympic Winter Games, which were eventually staged in Innsbruck, Austria?
Denver.
Yes, ding, ding, ding.
I'm so smart. I got 2 of them right.
I'm impressed.
No, I think I got 3 right. London, Germany, Denver.
Well, you said it's not Germany.
Okay, well, that's because I was okay. Fine, I'll
But you
take
were in the
L
ball
on that one.
You said Germany. We'll forget the first couple words. But if you liked that little trivia portion,
Ooh,
you may be excited to know that we have something up our sleeves for our 100th episode, which is coming up soon.
ooh, this is exciting news. We're breaking the news. Yes, we are coming up quickly on 100 episodes. I literally cannot believe that we almost had 100 episodes of Two Girls, One Podcast. Oh, Christ.
2 girls, 1 crossword. Yes, correct. Well, we are going to do a little trivia episode. We're going back through all of our episodes, and we are pulling trivia questions from all of our topics, and we are going to do a little trivia quiz for ourselves.
Yes,
And
we're
see
quizzing
how much-
each other. It's going to be really interesting to see how much information we have retained over the years.
Yeah, so you should definitely listen and see how much information you've retained over the years.
Ooh.
And if it's something that everyone likes, maybe we could do it, like every 50 episodes or so. Because 100, that's 200 topics. Only like 20 of those tops are still in my brain, so...
It's actually
We'll
kind
see.
of surprising how much information I have retained. I've started going through and, pulling questions and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also topics where I'm like, I don't even remember us doing this one. So it's going to be a wild ride. I can't wait for you guys to listen in. Grace, thanks for an early taste of what the 100th episode is going to be like.
No problem. I'm always here to give out a little sample of what's to come.
Ooh, I love that. And speaking of what's to come.
What's to come? Your topic.
It's my turn. My topic comes from the Sunday, June 27th, Washington Post, Evan Bernholz. 84 down. Fabergé blank.
Eggs.
Eggs. Do you know what Fabergé eggs are?
Aren't they like decorative eggs?
Yes, sort of. Were you thinking about doing this one?
I marked it as a maybe, but I didn't look into it.
Ooh, okay. Well, here I am. I actually am so excited to do this topic. I've known about Fabergé eggs for a long time. I mean,
She's on to you, okay? She's known about you for a while now.
and I've always wanted to know more. And once I get into this, you're gonna understand why I wanted to know more. It's like completely up my alley. If you guys have not figured it out yet, Grace and I have wildly different interests and wildly different things that we are drawn to in the puzzles, which is why we make such a great team. I tend to like historical things, like stupid, nerdy, like royal family things. So let's get into it.
Let's.
Okay. So a Fabergé egg is a jeweled egg created by the jewelry firm House of Fabergé in St. Petersburg, Russia, during the Russian Empire. And all of the Fabergé eggs were made approximately between 1885 and 1916. So, the House of Fabergé was a jewelry firm. Like I said, they were founded in 1842 in St. Petersburg, Russia, by a man named Gustave Fabergé. In 1860, Gustave retired from jewelry, and he left the House of Fabergé to his business partner. Gustave moved his family to Germany. He had 2 sons, Peter Karl, that's one person, Peter Karl, and Agathon. I realize now.
Agathon. I
Agathon.
like that name.
I believe the Fabergé family has roots in France, so there is some like French vibes to their names, like Fabergé and Agathon, for instance. Okay, so the main person in the Fabergé family that we need to pay attention to is Peter Karl, okay? Peter Karl is important to the Fabergé egg situation. Grew up in Germany, and in 1864, Peter Karl embarked on his grand tour of Europe. If you don't know what a grand tour of Europe is, it was essentially an excuse for wealthy families to send their sons on a huge, all-expenses paid trip across Europe where they got to experience every single culture you can imagine. They got to go to all different types of museums, learned all different types of things. They just traveled. It's called the Grand Tour.
I want to go on a grand tour.
I want to go on a grand tour as well. So in 1864, Peter Carl goes on his grand tour. He received tuitions from various respected goldsmiths in Germany, France, and England. He traveled and studied until 1872. When at 26, he returned to St. Petersburg and began to apprentice under the House of Fabergé's workmaster, Hiskias Pendin. He tutored under Pendin for 10 years. Hiskias Pendin did eventually die in 1882, and Peter Carl took over the sole responsibility of the House of Fabergé and was given the title of Master Goldsmith. And Peter Carl went professionally as Carl Fabergé, so I'm going to talk about him as Carl Fabergé from now on. So when Carl took over the company, the company shifted from just being like a jewelry company into becoming, quote, artist jewelers, end quote. And this leads me to a term called object d'art. That's my horrible French pronunciation, which literally translates to art object. It's basically a term to describe any work of art that's not a painting, a large or medium statue, prints, or drawings. So literally, it could be anything. It can cover a wide range of works, usually small, three-dimensional things, trinkets, knick-knacky type things. Eggs. Like we got metalwork, we got small carvings, statuettes, small clocks, boxes, etc. All of these are object d'art. And so under this idea of artist jewelers and creating these artistic pieces, Carl Fabergé began the production on the first ever Fabergé egg. And if you have any familiarity of Fabergé eggs, congratulations. If you do not, you might be like, what the hell does she mean by egg? I'm not talking like an egg from a hen, right? I'm talking about it's kind of like a statuette in the shape of an egg that sits on some sort of stand. And it's really decorative, really ornate, really beautiful, and really, really expensive. But yes, it's in the shape of an egg. So we got eggs on the brain.
So it's not actually, it's just in the shape of an egg.
It's just in the shape of an egg. Correct.
Lies.
So let's get into Fabergé eggs. I got most of my information from an article on artsy.com called A Brief History of the Fabergé Eggs by Casey Lesser. It all starts in 1885 when Russian Tsar Alexander III commissioned the House of Fabergé for an Easter gift for his wife, Empress Maria Fyodorovna. So in the Russian Orthodox ecclesiastical calendar, Easter is extremely important. So, of course, it makes sense that the Tsar at the time was like, I need a special Easter gift for my wife. So
yeah, it's a very romantic holiday.
Very romantic holiday. And so the Tsar is like, yo, Carl, hook me up. And Carl was like, okay, I'm super well-versed in art history, which he really was. And actually his background in art history, he was, the son of a famous jeweler. He went to art school. He had this incredibly privileged experience of doing this grand tour where he got to go to every museum in Europe and see every piece of art imaginable. It really informed his ability to create these insanely intricate and beautifully inspired pieces of art. And so when the Tsar calls him up, he's like, this is my time to shine. I'm going to do this. And so he makes the first ever Fabergé egg. He based his first egg, it's believed, on another famous object d'art, the 18th century Saxon royal egg, which he saw in a museum in Dresden. So the Saxon royal egg was basically a gold egg that encased a golden hen, and inside the golden hen, there was a small golden crown and a ring. And so Fabergé was like, I'm inspired.
They're on to something here.
So the Fabergé version, which is now known as the hen egg, had an opaque white enameled shell, which you would open with a twist to reveal a golden yolk. And then you would open the golden yolk and it would reveal a golden hen. And then if you opened the hen, it would reveal a mini replica of the imperial crown and a precious ruby pendant necklace.
It's just so weird. Also, why is that? No, okay, I guess a hen being inside the egg makes sense. But not like a baby hen.
No, like a hen with like the whole thing. everything going for it.
Well, imagine like in the US, they have like an egg, and then inside the egg's a yolk, then inside the yolk's a hen, then inside the hen is like a replica of the White House. It just like feels so weird.
Exactly. I mean, well, rich people do anything to pretend, to show that they've got money and to be like, look at all these fancy things I have to spend my money on.
That's true.
Okay, remember, this is the Tsar, and the Tsar, like the Empress we're talking about. So, like I said, inside the hen, you got this like mini crown and this royal pendant. However, the miniature crown and the pendant are lost to time. They're nowhere to be found.
Do they even exist?
Do they exist? They actually do. I think there's like a picture, like an old photograph that showed them all together, but they have since been lost, and I'll explain to you why that happened later. So this final reveal of the hen opening up into these like little jewelry pieces, it was actually the idea of Tsar Alexander. And he like told Fabergé, like, this is what I want to do. And then an expert in Fabergé pieces, someone by the name of Dr. Giza von Habsburg, says, quote, We know that is one of the very rare cases where the Tsar wanted to have a say in the matter of what the surprise would be, the surprise being what's inside the Fabergé egg. After that, Fabergé was really given carte blanche to create whatever he wanted, but it all had to have some bearing on the family itself, end quote. So it wasn't, the Tsar never, outside of the hen egg, the first egg, the Tsar never was like, hey, this is what I want. He just let Fabergé do what he wanted. This is kind of cool. So he was obviously very impressed by the hen egg. And for 3 decades following his first egg, Karl Fabergé continued providing these precious treasures to the Tsar and his family. Karl was in charge of the designs and leading the production of the eggs. Tsar Alexander III died in 1894, and his son, Tsar Nicholas II, continued the tradition of gifting Fabergé eggs. But this time, instead of commissioning 1 egg a year, he commissioned 2, one for his mother and one for his wife, Alexandra. Each egg is entirely unique from the others and made from a wide range of material. It could be anything from like 3-colored gold all the way to rock crystal. Each egg is always beset with precious stones and gems like emeralds, pearls, and diamonds. They range in size from under 3 inches to over 5 inches tall. Often, but not always, these eggs could be opened to reveal a surprise. And this is a funny quote from that article. Quote, "They're like the most expensive gift wrap you could ever make," end quote. It could take anywhere from 1 to 2 years to make a single egg, and each egg required the work of many different craftspeople with different expertise, so like metal smithing, diamond cutting, painting, enamel work, miniaturists, to name a few. And so all of this said, Karl Fabergé was not the guy like hunched over the workbench, like hammering away at the gems and like getting the egg together. He came up with the designs. He led the production. He was basically like a conductor of some complicated orchestra, right? Underneath of him were 2 main craftspeople who oversaw the production of each egg, and Karl just led the team. And then, of course, there's all the different craftspeople that were under them, you know, working on the various little aspects of each egg. Even during the time that the Fabergé eggs were being made, they were considered artistically innovative. Barry Schiffman, curator of decorative arts at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, says, quote, "They were the signature piece for Fabergé. Even at the time they had magic. Everyone knew they were important and they influenced others. Other artists tried to make their own eggs," end quote. And every year, Fabergé's job was to try something new. They would use unexpected materials like rock crystal or new devices like claw-fitted plinths, clocks, or automatons shaped like small birds or elephants. So these eggs were like, they weren't just like decorated and like pretty and like made of gold with a couple gems in them. I'm going to tell you about some of these eggs, and some of the things that these eggs could do, I'm just like, huh? Really cool. Some of the eggs became so widely known that they were exhibited at the Paris World's Fair in 1900, and in 1902 they were in an exhibit in St. Petersburg. Probably the most important element of the eggs, aside from like the overall theme and the material being used, was that the eggs also had to have some personal connection to the Romanov family. So remember, we're talking about the Romanovs, Tsar Nicholas. If you're familiar with the Romanov family at all, you probably know where this is headed. Anastasia, does that ring a bell? We'll get there. But the eggs had to be related to the Romanov family. Barry Schiffman, who we just mentioned, says, quote, Fabergé came up with the ideas or subjects that were meaningful to the Tsar's wife and mother. So they really had to be important to both his mom and his baby mama.
Mm-hmm.
For example, something you might see when looking up pictures of the eggs are that they all had these like tiny, not all of them, but a lot of them had tiny portraits of the imperial family members. And these were actually painted by the Fabergé workshop's expert miniaturists.
No.
I know, right? Examples of personal connection to the Romanov family. The Order of St. George egg, which was made in 1916. So Nicholas gave this to his mother, Maria, and it has 2 coins on the exterior that could be lifted to reveal the thumb-sized portraits of Nicholas and his son, Alexei. So that's kind of cute.
That's kind of fun.
Right? The rose
like
trellis
Pocket
egg. Exactly. These are like really fancy Polly Pocket houses for rich people.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rose trellis egg from 1907 was a gift to his wife, Alexandra. It's a pale green orb encrusted with a glittering grid of diamonds and dotted with enamel versions of her favorite flowers, pink roses, for instance. And there was a miniature of Alexei, their son, mounted on a medallion. So like all of this stuff was like for her. The medallion itself has been lost, so that painting of the sun is gone. And then the rock crystal revolving imperial egg from 1894 was another gift to Alexandra, and it features a clear glass shell with 12 miniature paintings depicting Alexandra's favorite places. And this is all mounted on a gold stem topped with an emerald that could be rotated to see the various images. And the paintings were like familiar locations or her favorite locations. One of these locations was Balmoral Castle in Scotland, where Alexandra's grandmother, Queen Victoria, lived. So we talked about Queen Victoria in like the first episode of this podcast. Yes, so, you know, Alexandra, Tsar Nicholas's wife, was the grandchild of Queen Victoria.
They're all related.
They're all related. And so each year, the egg for that year was kept entirely under wraps. The Tsar didn't even know what it was going to be like. Habsburg says, quote, it was the best kept secret what the following Easter egg was going to be. Nobody was allowed to know, not even the Tsar himself was informed, which I think is really interesting to think that this jeweler had such a prominent role in the society that the Tsar didn't even question what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
He was just like shelling out money, like give me the gifts from my mom and my baby mama. Some other famous Fabergé eggs. The coronation egg from 1897 is probably one of the most iconic eggs, and it commemorated Alexandra's imperial coronation. It's covered in luminous yellow-green enamel. It is engraved with a sunburst design, and it's bookended by portrait diamonds and cradles a toy-sized coach, which is a miniature replica of the 18th century vehicle that transported the Empress on the day of the imperial ceremony. You could actually open the small carriage doors and pull out a step stool, and inside the carriage, you could pull out a tiny diamond egg.
Oh, this is like so ridiculous.
It's wild. And the diamond egg has since been lost.
Mm-hmm.
The winter egg. This one is actually my favorite. I think it's so cool. It's from 1913. It's a gift from Nicholas to his mother. It consists of 3 blocks of rock crystal, which are fashioned so that they represent blocks of melting ice to mark, like, spring. And it's engraved with platinum and diamond snowflakes on the exterior, and inside there is a small platinum woven basket with flowers made from white quartz. It's gorgeous, and it feels very Russian, like ice melting. It's like very gorgeous. I could just see it hanging out in the Winter Palace, and I'm like, yes, this is my vibe. So the final years. The final imperial Fabergé eggs were crafted in 1916, and they reflect the unstable history of Russia at the time. I can't really go into the details of the Russian Revolution, but, you know, we will scratch very, very lightly on some of the details. But as Fabergé was crafting the final eggs in 1916, Russia is only years away from a complete political reset, okay? Mm-hmm. If you're interested in learning more about the Russian Revolution, there's a book called October, The Story of the Russian Revolution by China Melville. It's like one of my favorite books on this subject. Check it out. But anyway, the final Fabergé eggs from 1916 were simpler, more severe, less elaborate. Just they kind of reflected like how crap things were going. Also, not only was the Russian Revolution on the horizon, but Russia was in a huge war, deadly, bloody. It was horrible. So, like, the country was not doing well. And so Fabergé was like, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't do all this extravagant stuff, right? We've already talked about the Order of St. George egg, but Fabergé also created the steel military egg in 1916, and it was made from shiny steel, and it sat atop a plinth shaped like bullets. So that's not exactly romantic or Easter.
Message received.
Yeah. Right. And so that was 1916, and by 1917, the Romanov family went into exile. And by July 1918, yes, so they went into exile first, and then by July 1918, the entire family was executed.
Sorry, just the egg pie.
Did I say executed?
Exiled and executed. Ugh.
Okay. This is a serious matter. We've never laughed about exile and execution before. Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, the Romanov family sadly was killed. And the Fabergé workshop had to be disbanded, and many of the workers ended up fighting in World War I. Fabergé himself fled to Switzerland, where he died in 1920. So he didn't live much longer after all of this. So that leads me to the question, like, what happened to the eggs? Why are they so popular to this day? There are 50 imperial eggs made throughout this time, okay? Mm-hmm. They were looted from the Romanov residence and taken by the Bolsheviks to Moscow during the revolution. Many of these eggs were sold, and a lot of those hidden surprises that I was telling you about were actually sold separately from the egg, which is why there's so many missing pieces to this day. Mm-hmm. 10 of these eggs ended up in the Moscow Kremlin Armory Museum, and another 8 went entirely missing. Some of the eggs found their way to private dealers who then took them to the States and sold them to wealthy art collectors. One such example, there is a dealer by the name of Armand Hammer. Yes, Armand Hammer, the guy who eventually bought Armand Hammer the baking soda because he liked that their names were so similar. And yes, the Armand Hammer who then was so obsessed with his name named like all the male heirs in the family after himself, such as Armie Hammer, the actor. It's all connected, okay?
He was a cannibal.
Yes. So suspected cannibal.
Allegedly.
Suspected cannibal Armie Hammer. His great-grandfather, Armand Hammer, was a art dealer who had some of these Fabergé eggs, and he sold 5 of them to a woman named Lillian Thomas Pratt, who was a patron at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. One of those eggs that she bought was the Peter the Great egg from 1903, which celebrated the 200th anniversary of the founding of the city St. Petersburg. It cost her $16,500 for it at the time.
I feel like that's not that much.
It's not that much. Today, 43 eggs are known to be in existence still, and they're scattered all over the world. The largest collection of the eggs is at the Kremlin Armory. There's 10 there. At the Fabergé Museum in St. Petersburg, there are 9. The third largest collection is the Pratt collection at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. There's 5 there. And then there's another 3 that belong to this woman named Matilda Gettings Gray. And those 3 are now at the Met in New York City. And then, of course, the royal family, the Brits, they also have another 3 eggs. So the 9 eggs that are in the Fabergé Museum in St. Petersburg belonged to a Russian businessman named Victor Veckelsberg. He gave his collection of eggs to this museum. But how did he get the collection? He bought them in 2004 from the collection of a man named Malcolm S. Forbes. Yes, that Forbes, the American entrepreneur and a magazine publisher. Mm-hmm. Everyone is really rich here, okay?
Yeah, I was going to say, how did he get those eggs?
He probably bought them from Armand frickin' Hammer. Who knows? So Forbes had amassed a collection of these eggs throughout the years, and it's actually Forbes' collection that's probably why there's so much like modern day frenzy over them. His collecting of the eggs drove the egg prices up, and he also drove up public attention for them. So Habsburg, who we've talked about before, was actually helping Forbes travel one of the eggs to Munich in 1986 for an exhibition. And this is what Habsburg says of that, quote.
An egg exhibition?
An exhibition.
Sorry, I can't help
Houseford
myself.
says, quote, I was carrying one of the Forbes eggs across the ocean, and the egg had to have a seat next to me and a guard. This, of course, was leaked to the press and fascinated them enormously. So Forbes is really good about creating, like, intrigue and mystery and just kind of excitement around the eggs. And, like, it's one of those things, like, of course people are going to want to buy them now because you're doing all this weird stuff. You're having somebody guard your damn egg across the ocean. Come on. And yeah, because of this, Fabergé is still like a popular curiosity, right? Most experts agree that it's a combination of the quality of the eggs, the sentimental value that the eggs held for the Romanovs, the family's dramatic downfall, the mystery of the still missing eggs, and of course the astronomical monetary sums that they're estimated to be worth today. And of course, there are still those who are searching for the eggs to this day, the missing eggs. Here's a fun story. In 2010, an American scrap metal dealer visited an antique stall somewhere in the United States, right? And he purchased a golden egg sitting on a 3-legged stand. The egg was adorned with diamonds and sapphires, and it opened to reveal a clock. His plan was to sell the object to, like, some craftsman who was then going to melt it down for parts. But he was trying to sell it for like $13,000, and everyone's like, that's way too much money for this piece of junk. No way. So he's like, okay. He's like, I'm going to hop on my computer and I'm going to Google this. So he starts Googling, and surprise, surprise, he finds out that he's actually in the possession of one of the missing Fabergé eggs. And it was estimated at the time in 2010 to be worth $33 million.
Yeah, see, that Pratt lady got a good deal then.
She really, really did. The Pratt lady was before Forbes came in and like screwed all the pricing up. So is this a lesson to us all to go to random antique stalls and make sure we have $13,000 on our person to make sure we can buy a 3-legged egg stand in case we ever come across one? Maybe.
I'll be keeping my eyes open, that's for sure.
That's for sure. There's also 2 people called, their names are Dorothy and Artie McFerrin, and they have a private collection of their own of various Fabergé objects, including numerous eggs that Fabergé made for private clients, because Fabergé wasn't just making them for the royal family. So there's those 50 imperial eggs. Those are the really, really expensive ones. And then he made a ton of other like objects and eggs for private clients, right? And so this couple collects the eggs from the private clients, right? Anyway, in 2015, they discovered that there is a small enamel automaton elephant that was supposed to be inside one of the eggs that they had, and they found out that it was actually in the collection of the British royal family. So it's just interesting how these things kind of like have, spread themselves out across the world. I'm going to talk about a couple more eggs, and then we're going to end.
Okay.
The rosebud egg from 1895. It was the first gift from Nicholas II to Alexandra. It was enameled and jeweled on the outside. The princess grew up in Darmstadt, Germany, and the egg's first surprise, an opaque yellow enamel rose, was meant to remind her of the hometown, that all the flowers that grew in her hometown. And inside the rose were 2 more surprises, since lost, a golden crown with diamonds and rubies, and a ruby pendant.
Cute.
The bay tree egg, which is so gorgeous. When we get off the call, you have to look all of these up. The bay tree egg was a gift from Nicholas to his mother. It was constructed from enamel and jeweled nephrite to look like a beautiful bay tree. Among the bay leaves is a tiny lever disguised as a fruit. This activates a hinged circular top that reveals a feathered songbird that rises and flaps its wings, turns its head, opens its beak, and sings.
That's pretty fancy.
Fancy pantsy. And then my favorite is the lily of the valley egg, and it was a gift from Nicholas to Alexandra. It was done in a sort of Art Nouveau style. It's covered in pearls and topped with rose pink enamel. The egg sits on a cabriole legs of green gold leaves with rose-cut diamond dewdrops. The gold-stemmed lilies have green enameled leaves and flowers made of gold set with rubies, pearls, and diamonds. So the prize inside, revealed when you would, the gold-mounted pearl at the top, you twist it, and inside are the portraits of her husband and their daughters, the Grand Duchesses Olga and Tatiana. And then the images were positioned under the imperial crown, set with a ruby, and were painted on ivory and framed in rose diamonds, backed with gold panels engraved with the presentation date.
Pretty.
It's gorgeous. And finally, I'm going to end with a quote from Carl Fabergé himself from a 1914 interview, in which he was asked how he stacks up against his competition at the time. Quote, Tiffany, Cartier, Boucheron are people of commerce. I am the artist jeweler. You can spend millions of rubles and buy a string of pearls. But if you want to buy something artistic, you have to come to me.
No lies detected.
Snaps. So that's the Fabergé eggs.
They sound really cool. I'm excited to see the photos that you post on our Instagram.
Yes, they're going to be beautiful. I'm going to have a hard time picking which eggs to highlight.
Post them all. How many can we have in a carousel?
10. I'm going to have to post 5 posts for this episode so we can get all 10 of the eggs in.
Hey, if it happens, it happens.
Yep.
And if you want to see those posts, you can find us on Instagram at The Good Evening Girls.
Or tune in to our Twitter if you're interested in participating in one of our fun polls that we talk about in Polapalooza. Our Twitter handle is The Good Eve Girls.
And our TikTok is The Good Evening Girls if you want to see us make a fool of ourselves.
Please come over, have fun. Maybe we'll make some egg-cellent content on TikTok.
Oh, wait, I was going to ask you, is that the inspiration behind Cadbury eggs and the little, because inside a Cadbury egg, there's that little yellow thing, and then inside there's the toy. Seems kind of similar.
Great question. I'm not exactly sure. I didn't go too much into the pop culture influence that Fabergé has, but they had a lot. There's a lot of articles about that, and I didn't dive into it, but I'm sure that there is some sort of connection.
Well, we love eggs, and we love surprises in our eggs, so...
We talked a lot about eggs this episode.
We did. We came full circle.
Full circle. Well, it's been a lot of fun being in this circle with you.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see you next time.
Well, we'll gather again same time next week.
Ooh, all right. I'll see you there.
Bye.
Bye.